WNST, Towson, Baltimore, and WNST.net. We are jumping on a big old jet airplane and going across the Atlantic Ocean to London to play football this weekend. And we have our head coach here on behalf of the Living Classrooms Foundation. Had a chance to spend Saturday night with Coach Billick amongst other Super Bowl 35 champions. A really neat little reunion. And, Coach, before I get on to London, before I get on to the Jaguars and promote your Twitter and talk about your NFL Network work, that thing over the weekend was pretty special. I want to give you a little platform to talk about it because it was your team. It's your claim to fame. Certainly changed my life, changed the life of sports fans here and what our expectations were. But to get all the guys together in a room and to see OJ as beloved as he is at this point in his life, it really was an inspiring Saturday evening, man.
It was just a great, great night. And I give Kyle Richardson and Femi Abbott, James Bond at Living Classrooms, real together. It was great. You know, I missed the 10-year reunion of the Super Bowl team because I was doing games for Fox. I was working that weekend. So it's been, 18 years, 17 years since I've seen a lot of these guys. And it was great. The affection in the room was great to see a lot of them. The number of guys that showed up, both, for the foundation and obviously for OJ. And it was just a fabulous, fabulous night.
Well, we're on to London here. It's been a heck of a week and a little bit of a magic carpet ride here over 2 weeks. Coach, I had you on 2 weeks ago, and it's, Flacco is back. How's it doing? And, the defense looked okay in the preseason, but we'll see how it goes. Boy, they've checked all the boxes here over 2 weeks, right? I mean, offense has been productive enough, as much as you'd want it to be. You can clean things up a little bit more. You can probably run the ball a little better. We're going to get to the yonder thing. But the defense has been extraordinary. I don't know what more you could ask of this football team, on the eve of leaving for London for this trip, which is its own undertaking, and we'll get to that, right?
Yeah, I mean, it's as advertised, and what a great start, particularly for the defense, and it starts inside, up front, and obviously, let alone the 10 turnovers in 2 games. You get 5 turnovers a game, you're going to win a lot of football games. But I'm doing a piece for my show on the NFL Network Playbook, where I show, to me, it all begins in the middle up front. I know Brandon Williams missed the game, but on the interior, when you have guys like Brandon Williams when he's playing, like Pierce, like Urban, their ability to gobble up the interior of offensive lines. You got to take 3 interior guys to gobble up 2 defensive linemen. That means a lot of one-on-one with Suggs, Bowser coming off the edge, and let alone all the creative blitzes that Dean Pease can come up with. That's a matchup that bodes well for the Ravens, and that defense is as advertised. And the offense, they're third in the league in rushing right now. Now I know it's only 2 weeks, but they're doing what they have to do, all but against a struggling Cincinnati and a Cleveland team, and I think they're going to fare very well against Jacksonville. We're going to get the true measure of this defense in 2 weeks at Pittsburgh and then having to go out to Oakland the next week.
You mentioned taking the ball away. You can coach it up as well as you want, but, as was evidenced on some NFL films, I don't know how much coaching up of Ed Reed you were doing, right? Like, you'll take credit for the interceptions, but he could do extraordinary things and really probably saw the game differently than anybody else, right? And part of taking the ball away is there are guys who are good defenders who just never get that instinct to get 2 hands around the ball, and some would say, well, that's why he's on defense and not a wide receiver to begin with, right?
Well, it begins with that pressure up front that we talked about, but this secondary, think about it, beyond the depth of it and the capabilities of these guys, there's a lot of experience back there. When you're talking about Weddle and Jefferson and Carr, and then you take a guy like Ladarius Webb that has played both corner and safety and is in the slot. He's seen a lot of football, so to have that kind of experience at your third corner or slot position is a huge, huge advantage for the Ravens. And a big reason why they've got the 10 turnovers in 2 games.
Coach Billick is available at Coach Billick on Twitter. He is a tweeter and an insider on all things football on Sundays and Mondays, especially during games. Always a lot of fun to follow the coach, and, of course, at an NFL Network as well. Tell me about London here, Coach. You didn't make this trip, but I know you made some other trips and weird trips and coaching them up and trying to get the organization together. 5 time zones for the Ravens. I guess when other teams west of the Mississippi go, it's even more stressful. I remember when Coach Smith, your brother-in-law, went over from Atlanta. They lost a game here and sort of ate dinner and then went over there and lived for a week. Everyone's tried it a different way, and I know everyone's looking for an advantage. The Jaguars have found that this Thursday over has worked better for them, but this has been sort of a holy grail thought for the organization, staving it off for a couple of years. We didn't have to go play this game. Now that they have to go play it, this is a nice circumstance. I think there's a lot of confidence about going over there and winning this game this weekend.
Well, and it's because of the overall organization, and it takes that, obviously. Obviously, the players ultimately have to play, and they just have to play. And you're right, there's a lot of studies, and everybody, they look at the sleep studies and the eat here, sleep there, change your clock here and there, which is all well and good, but at the end of the day, the players just have to deal with it. And as Denny Green, my mentor, used to say, you got to march all night and fight all day. And they will do that. But the organization, Bob Eller, the operations guy, the absolute best in the National Football League, he will have this thing orchestrated to a T as best you can, going the distance that you're talking about. I've only played overseas. I've played in some overseas preseason games in Germany and London and Tokyo, and it's a wear and tear on the body. Make no mistake. The one memory I have of do play in London is the buses pulling in, and I see a big old sign that says no football coaches, which of course means no soccer buses. But the fact that it said no football coaches, I thought, okay, that's good. I got to give me one of those.
That's pretty good. I bet you use that in your stand-up. That's got to be in the book, Coach. That's pretty good.
Oh, absolutely, absolutely.
No football coaches. I like it. I'm looking for a sign that says no football coaches now this weekend, and I'm gonna post that. I'm gonna tag you on that when it's all said and done. What do you make of this Jaguars team? I mean, certainly Jekyll Hyde. This smells like something that Dean Pease and the Ravens defense are going to cook up here, with or without Brandon Williams this week. And we hope he gets back sooner than later, certainly on the rush stop. But Blake Bortles likes to give the ball away. They played in ridiculous down and distances last week against Tennessee. And that really plays into the wheelhouse of what the Ravens want to do in taking the ball away here that they've been good at. It wouldn't shock me to see 3 or 4 more this Sunday over there at Wembley. Yeah,
I mean, that's the MO. I mean, on a positive note, let's not underestimate Jacksonville. They're playing much better on defense. And Leonard Fournette, the running back, is the real deal. That is a big physical back. When you look at the first game in particular, the difference between them trying to tackle him in the first quarter and the fourth quarter. There were a lot of flybys in that fourth quarter because they were just tired of getting beat down by this guy. He's a big physical back, can be very good. But you're right. Now, Blake Bortles has the ability to make big plays. But you're right. And given the circumstances, particularly with, and I don't anticipate them running the ball real well. I don't know that anybody's going to run the ball real well against the Ravens in that front seven. So when you don't, and it falls on your shoulders, and now that pass rush we talked about, I would not bet against Bortles turning this thing over a little bit.
All right, let's get off of this game because I do know you cover the entire league out there, and I guess looking ahead to some games here this weekend, and and more than that, just the 2-0 teams. Denver has moved really to the top of the power rankings with a shutdown of the Cowboys, right? That is a signature win, right?
Yeah, Denver was what they've done, and we know they're going to play great defense. What was a little surprising is their ability to shut down the Dallas running game with just a standard box. They didn't have to add a lot of guys down into it. That shocked me a little bit because they're a little undersized, and as we know, that Dallas line can really overwhelm you. And they held up very, very well with just their standard spacing front. They're running the ball very well. That's something they didn't do last year, which plays in the wheelhouse of Trevor Siemian. If you keep him on a pitch count of 30 or less, they're pretty successful, and he's playing well. So and obviously Thomas and Sanders are showing up, and so this is a good football team. People are kind of wondering what the transition would be without Wade Phillips and Vance Joseph taking over on the defensive side, but they certainly look like the real deal.
Another team that's certainly on the come with a signature win the other night with the Atlanta Falcons at home. Struggled a little bit against Chicago. I think there was a lot of question about how you rebound, and I know you and I talked about it in the offseason. How do you come back from that disaster that they had down in Houston in the Super Bowl? Well, they've come back at 2-0. Now they have to go play Detroit on the road this week. That'll be an interesting game unto itself, but they're also another team I think worthy of discussing at this point as, well, look at them. They're doing okay down there in Atlanta.
Yeah, Atlanta, and you're right. They had to get past that hurdle of and as you listen to them, you can hear, it's with us every day. And it's got to be, you got to use it as a motivator, not as a burden. It's going to be what it's going to be. And they're going to carry it even into the playoffs, and they certainly look like a playoff team until they get back to the Super Bowl and win it. Otherwise, they're going to continue to hear about that every day of their football lives. But they do look like a legitimate team in that regard. They lost Vic Beasley, which is that's going to hurt now. He was the one legitimate pass rush they had on the outside. That's going to hurt them a little bit defensively. But boy, they've got so many weapons. And Matt Ryan is playing at such a high level. I'm doing a piece on him again this week, where it's just his fundamentals are so sound. The example I'm going to show, just the perfect drop back, the scanning from right to middle to left, his shoulders, his vision, his footwork are so pure. He's playing at a very high level right now.
He's going to win a championship, isn't he? If you had $1 and you had to bet it on or against him over the next 5 years, as much as we compare him to Flacco, and Flacco's already won one, I don't know that anybody thinks Flacco's getting better. I don't, from a perception standpoint, over the next 5 years, you'd take Matt Ryan, wouldn't you?
Oh, absolutely. Now, a lot of things have to happen. There's been some great quarterbacks in this league that have not gotten a Super Bowl, but from a sheer talent standpoint, the ability to raise the level of guys around you, I think Matt Ryan is probably just that Super Bowl win away from being listed among the elite quarterbacks in the National Football League. Certainly his productivity, his physical skills, what he's been able to do. He's got a good supporting cast, make no mistake. But yeah, Matt Ryan is definitely, touching and approaching that elite level.
2-0. We're talking about 2-0 teams. Carolina going to be hosting New Orleans, and I guess for all the Ravens fans, we played the early morning game. All of these games will be available and red zoned up, so you'll be watching them in the afternoon after the Ravens start the season 3-0, we hope, over at Wembley. But Carolina hosting New Orleans, boy, this is a real swing game, right? I mean, Carolina can sort of bury New Orleans here. They have not had a good start. The defense looks as bad as it's ever looked, and Carolina looks like they've rebounded after they had that hangover last year after looking awful in the Super Bowl out there in Santa Clara.
Yeah, last year, it's kind of hard to figure why they weren't playing well, because when you looked at the team, they were, solid and doing, a lot of good things, much like they did the year before when they were 15-1, but it just wasn't happening. Defensively, they're much better. They're better on the back end. Offensively, Cam Newton still hasn't seemed to really got into his groove, but the addition of Christian McCaffrey, and they'll use him and Jonathan Stewart together. They lost Greg Olsen for a little bit. That's going to hurt because he's a go-to guy for Cam Newton, but certainly. And then you compare him to New Orleans. My God, Tom Brady, could he have had a better defense to say, okay, let me show you how old I am, and let me show you how over the hill I am, and goes out and throws for a career high, almost 500 yards. And I went through and looked at that film to break it down for the show, and it was just a pure joy to watch in terms of watching him operate and just manipulate that defense. And New Orleans in a tough spot right now. Sean Payton's been 7-9 each of the last 3 years. And each of those years they started out 0-2. Offensively, Drew Brees obviously is going to bail him out of a lot of things, but that defense just does not look any better than it's been.
Interesting you'd say about New England, because I wasn't even going to bring them up, and they play Houston at home in a 1 o'clock game this week. It's almost like they got really pissed off last week, right? Losing like that at home when they're flying a flag, getting embarrassed like that, there was like a different level for them on 10 days of rest, right?
Oh, yeah. I mean, you can not that he verbalized it that way or really thought of it that way, but you can kind of get the sense in the back of his mind Tom Brady was going, okay, I'll show you old. Watch this. And again, with who? I mean, without Amendola now, we talked about Edelman down and Amendola going to score. He was out of the game. Gronk's been out of the game. I mean, who's he doing it with? That's the amazing thing. I think when you talk about Tom Brady, and he'll just build on it even this year, and we talk about the signature of a great quarterback is how he raises the level of play around him. When you look at what Tom Brady's doing and you compare it to who he's doing it with, that truly is the signature of a Tom Brady and just how great he is.
Schedule makers didn't do Tennessee any favors, right? I mean, they get Jack coming in their first week. They lose. They get a big win over Jacksonville, and we'll see them on Sunday morning. But now they get Seattle coming in. Seattle, the same thing. I mean, some of these teams, I look up and I say they're going to be 1-2, and they're going to have played a tougher schedule. Seattle and Tennessee, interesting teams here. I think Tennessee's for real. I think they'll win this week.
Whether they'll win or not, they are for real. I love Marcus Mariota. There's two young receivers they drafted. They added Eric Decker. It's a good offensive line. They're better on defense. Yeah, they're very much a legitimate team. Now, Seattle's got the pedigree, but that offensive line is a real concern. They with the Giants are probably the one. They're going to get their quarterbacks killed. And now, when that does happen, now Russell Wilson, they can't run the ball. The lack of real dynamic play in the receiving core down the field, it all gets exposed when you have an offensive line playing the way Seattle's it. And well, okay, how do we fix it? Well, that's hard because it's not like you're going to go out and get somebody. There's nobody out there to get, and your guys have got to play better. You got to do those things to help them to not put the pressure on Russell Wilson. But at the end of the day, the offensive line, that's a tough fix.
He is head coach Brian Billick on behalf of the Living Classrooms Foundation as he always joins us. Big reminder, the Maritime Magic Party coming up in 3 weeks. You'll definitely want to be a part of that. You can learn more at livingclassrooms.org. We had a big fundraiser over the weekend for Living Classrooms as well as for O.J. Brigance with Kyle Richardson and Femi Ayabadejo, the incredible reunion of the Super Bowl 35 troops. You can follow Coach Billick at Coach Billick out on Twitter. Last thing for you, Coach, the L.A. football experiment. I only want to talk about it because it's early in the year. You're a Los Angelino. Boy, this thing's not going well, man. And as I get on the plane to go over to London, I start to think about where the Chargers are really going to end up because I don't think it's going to be Inglewood long term.
Yeah, this is going to be, you knew in L.A. it's a unique spot. For all those years they didn't have it. Now they've got two teams. But again, who are you competing with? You're competing with a top 5 team in USC. And you are competing with them. I mean, there's only so many, even though LA is the size that it is, that those dollars and entertainment dollars and buying those tickets only go so far. And then the atmosphere that you have, the Rams looked better. Goff is showing some signs. He's still learning, but he's showing some signs he might be a guy. The Chargers, again, playing in StubHub Stadium in that little stadium, not even filling that out, the whole feel of it, the whole look of it. It's going to be a tough run in L.A. this year.
Coach, take care of yourself this week. We're going to have a nice, safe, hopefully victorious trip across the pond, and we'll check in with you next week. Big doings around here next week, Coach. You know me, I'm a Jets. I wanted to go to Barcelona to see the Stones on Wednesday night next week. It's Steelers week around here, man. I got to get home. You know what I mean?
Absolutely. We're messing around now.
We could have a 3-0 football team and the Steelers coming in. So no hokey pokey. I'll be back here next week, ready to talk some football with you. Thanks for coming on, Coach.
Sounds good.
Appreciate all you do. He is Coach Billick out on Twitter and, of course, locally on behalf of the Living Classrooms Foundation. Get out there and help James Bond and help the city out and learn more at livingclassrooms.org. You can find me in the Buy a Toyota Audio Vault 24 hours a day from anywhere in the world, and I mean anywhere in the world. I mean London. You can find us from over there. You can also find us Saturday at 11 a.m. as we throw our big party in East London, in the Docklands area. It's a great sports pub called Fox at XL. Great food, some mushy peas, some fish and chips, some pints, some football on. And then we're going to take the Emirates Air Cable Car 252 across the River Thames to the O2 Arena and march on the place that Led Zeppelin played their only reunion concert back in 2005. The years go by. The DVD's still pretty good, though, too. So you can learn all that information up at WNST.net. Nasty at WNST.net finds me. We're going to be Facebooking live, YouTubing, and I'm also on Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn, Snapchat, Instagram. We are WNST.net AM 1570 and WNST Towson, Baltimore, and we never stop talking Baltimore sports.